Hello, everybody. It's Fiona Lucas here, joining you live for my regular Friday live, which happens at about this time most Fridays. I wasn't here last Friday because I was in Hobart presenting at a corporate retreat, and I wasn't able to be here. But I want to just say a really big welcome to you. Happy Friday. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a great day, great evening. And this is where I come every Friday to bring some sort of insight, clarity, to be of service in some small way to those of you out there who are struggling with relationships or other areas of your life. So if you do have a question, this is a Q&A. Feel free to tune in and post your question below. And if you want to say hi, I always love to hear from people and find out wherever you're listening to in the world. And I can see a few people joining us now. Hello and welcome to today's Friday Live on Friday, October the 21st. And if you are joining us live, please feel free to say hi. Thank you. Hey, Rose. Hi, darling. Thanks for saying hi. Kirsten, hello from Jodhpur. I'm probably pronouncing that terribly in India. So exciting that you are traveling around India on your own, honey. I really, it's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely thrilled for you. I really, really am. Hello, Trisha Seawolves. Now, when you say the word Seawolves, are you part of the Seawolves in Mount Martha? Is that Trisha? Um is that what you mean by Trisha Seawolves? I'm curious. I'm curious. We have a swimming group here that my mother is a big part of. Called them in Mount Martha called the Seawolves. Okay, you're from the Seawolves. I love it. I love it. Well, welcome, Trisha. I love it. Anybody else? That's so awesome. The Seawolves, for those of you who are wondering, are this incredible group of women who go swimming most mornings of the week, pretty much every morning, all year round in the ocean, and it's often freezing. And they swim together in the cold water, and they howl. They get together, not all the time, but they kind of, they have this catch cry that a lot of them have. My mother's uh, serenaded me with it a few times, and they've developed this incredible sense of kingship, friendship, connection through swimming and meeting up every morning. It's just beautiful. It's really, really, really quite beautiful. So yes, I do remember meeting you at the art exhibition, Trisha. Welcome, welcome. I love it. I love it. Okay, so anybody else who wants to say hi, feel free to do so. I always love to know and hear from you wherever you are in the world. I know Rose is tuning in from California. Obviously, Kirsten is in India. Trisha is in the Mornington Peninsula in Mount Martha, very close to where I am. And for anyone out there, please feel free to say hi. So I do want to start off today because, I always promise to be as real and transparent as possible. Hey, Roz, you're back in Vic. Okay, welcome, welcome. Nice to see you, darling. Nice to have you here. I want to be as transparent as possible. I've had a very, very difficult day yesterday. And I may get emotional as I say this, but my best buddy, my dog, had a massive seizure and died yesterday afternoon. It's I knew I'd get emotional. So I'm still processing that, and he has been my shadow. My best buddy. He's always with me every minute of the day. I work from home wherever I am. My dog is there, and I went outside yesterday to collect some mail and get something from my post office box, and I was only gone about 10 minutes, and I came back and he was having a massive seizure, and apparently the seizure was so bad that I rushed him to the vet, but he couldn't be revived or saved. So it's happened very quickly out of nowhere. Very healthy dog. I took him for a run the night before, and it's been devastating. So I haven't had a lot of sleep. And I did consider not even doing my live today just because I thought I'm going to get emotional, but I also am aware that I make this promise to show up to you guys at this time every week. And I know a lot of you rely on it. A lot of you email me, a lot of you message me and say how helpful you find these lives. And because I wasn't able to do it last week, I thought, well, I'll just show up. And if I'm emotional, I'm emotional. Like, emotions are not something to be frightened of or avoid or ignore. I'm pretty comfortable with my emotions, and I'm just grieving at the moment, and it's all good. That process is going to take however long it takes. My dog and I had an incredibly close bond, and like, incredible. I was his person, he was mine. So it's very bizarre and surreal that he's not here, but life goes on, right? And I've made a promise to show up to you guys. So here I am, warts and all, and ready to be of service. So if you have a question that you want to share, I do have something I want to talk about, and it's not going to be about my dog, I promise, but just wanted to explain to you why my eyes might look a little red and why I look a little tired. So, I've been awake all night thinking about him and reliving our time together. So I haven't had a lot of sleep, but I did meet up with a client early this morning and go for an amazing walk with them. And I, that's the amazing thing about having this understanding in your life, that you are still able to show up and be of service wherever and whenever you can. So there is something I want to talk about, a theme that's come up in a number of my sessions, and it was a theme that came up in the session today, and it's come up a few times. So I do want to talk about that with you guys. But if you do have a question, feel free to post it below. I do appreciate your condolences, everybody. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's losing an animal that's a part of your family yeah. He was a big part of our family, and a very much loved part of my life. So yeah, it's tricky at the moment, but thank you, everybody. So thank you, Sharon. James, hey James, nice to see you. Wow, must be very late in the UK there. So I'm impressed that you're here. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Peter. Hey Shane, thanks for jumping in and saying hi. I do appreciate that. Nice to hear from you. So if you do have a question, post it below. But what I wanted to talk about today, and I know my assistant is just grabbing some questions for me that have come through. So whilst I'm waiting on those, I'm just going to talk about what I wanted to talk about today. Often when we are dealing with relationships, thanks, Lee. Appreciate that, honey. I really, really do. Often when we're dealing with relationships in life, we can become very, very focused on what the other person is or isn't doing. All right. We can be very, very focused on what the other person is or isn't doing. And so what happens is, the mistake people make, okay, is that they base the way they're going to show up, they base their reaction, they base everything on what someone else is or isn't bringing to the table. Okay, so they base how they're going to show up, how they're going to live their life, their responses, their reactions, on what someone else is or isn't bringing to the table. And so, I guess the theme for today is stay in your lane. Okay, the theme for today is stay in your lane. Often the mistake that we make is that we think in order to change something in a relationship, we have to change what someone else is doing. We have to convince someone of something. We have to show something to someone. And then we worry about whether they've understood it, whether they've realized it. Are they going to apologize? Have they noticed what they're doing? Have they not noticed what they're doing? Have they realized that they upset me here? Have they realized this? Have they realized that? And we're completely focused on the other person, okay? And it doesn't matter which relationship it is. It could be a work colleague, it could be your partner, it could be a child, it could be whatever, right? But people get very, very focused. And when you do that, you lose your way. You become very emotionally reactive. You come from judgment. We get very defensive. We become very positional. We get very rigid. We can become controlling. And when you do that, all right, when you do that, goodwill falls through the floor. People stop focusing on the collective, on the whole, on the we, and they burrow down into their own position, okay, and they start going to self-protection mode. The minute you are in self-protection mode, obviously the worst of you comes out, whatever that is. And the problem is we keep bringing that to the table because we're so focused on what the other person is or isn't doing. And then we get caught up in a very, what's the word? A very convincing cycle of justification. Now, the minute you justify something, you can no longer see it. It becomes invisible to you. And then you become disempowered because all of a sudden, everything you're doing depends on what the other person's response is or is not. And so, I was actually having this conversation with a client I was walking along the beach with this morning. I had this conversation with someone yesterday and the day before. You've got to learn the art of staying in your own lane. When we're focused on what someone else is or isn't doing, we overcomplicate everything. The minute you overcomplicate something, you take everything personally. You overthink, you ruminate. You start looking at the what ifs and the yeah buts and the exceptions to everything. You start looking at all of your differences, and the differences start to look massive. You start thinking that, oh, we don't have the same values. Oh, I don't like the way they do this. If only they would stop doing that. If only, if only, if only. Right? Your mind speeds up. You start to chew through enormous mental load. And then you become disempowered, you get frustrated, and you start projecting that onto each other. When a couple are, or anyone, like whatever the dynamic is of the two people involved where there's friction, we often think that it's about the two people. It really isn't. It's about whether you are in your own lane. Okay? If you just focus on you and how you're showing up and not what someone else is or isn't doing, if you have a very strong sense of self, if you know the flavor that you're bringing, if you have a very strong understanding of where you are as opposed to where the other person is, you will bring something far, far more profound than what you're doing now. You will bring a flavor and an energy that you are not doing now that will have a very profound impact on the people around you. And the thing is, you will be able to do it consistently, because sometimes when trust is low, when emotional intimacy is not there, when people don't feel safe emotionally, when there is not a history of dealing with conflict well, when those things are in place, it can take a while, right? Because people feel as though, okay, they're not sure, is this too good to be true? Does this person really mean it? Are they just doing this because, it looks like a good idea and they want something in return? So it really depends as well on how loaded you are. But what people need to learn how to do is to stay in their own lane. This is why when I'm working with a couple, for example, I don't work with them together initially at all. I work with them separately. And I work with them separately until they're really good at staying in their own lane. And only then will I bring them together. There is no point bringing a couple together who are zigzagging across each other's lane, okay? Because all they're going to do is pollute one another, right? All they're going to do is project their insecurities onto one another. All they're going to do is justify their experience. All they're going to do is yeah, but, and what if. You cannot create the kind of change that you're looking for from that place. You've got to become really good at staying in your own lane. And you also have to understand why that is far, far more important than zigzagging across the road. I cannot express this enough. There is so much freedom when you know how to stay in your own lane, and you understand when you are in your own lane and when you're in somebody else's, okay? And where you're potentially polluting somebody else's. And this is the thing I would say in 100% of the people that cross my path, that they don't know this, they don't realize that they're crossing into someone else's lane, and they think it's all about the other person. Now, please understand, I don't say this because I think that you're sorry. My phone's ringing and I haven't turned that down properly. I don't say this because I'm trying to say that whatever someone else is doing is your fault. That's not what I mean. All right. But how you experience another person, which is what I was telling you last week, is your mirror of whether you are in your own lane. Okay, so there is a difference between what someone does and how you experience it. Okay, and if you're not sure what I mean, I talked about this, oh, not last Friday, but the Friday before. I had a very long conversation about that. This is very, very important because they're two very different things. What someone does and how you experience it are two very different things. Okay, so when you understand the power of staying in your own lane, you stop polluting another person's lane and you stop allowing another person to pollute yours. All right. Now, when that happens, we become a lot more emotionally intelligent. When we're a lot more emotionally intelligent, our mind slows down. We're not chewing through as much mental load. We're a lot more present, grounded, calm, neutral, curious. We stop projecting onto another person. We stop coming from that place of which many of us do when when our mind is racing of superiority or arrogance, thinking we know better. We're a lot more able to connect, to listen, really listen, right? You cannot listen when you're in someone else's lane. Okay? You can only listen from your own lane. Very important. You're able to bring a lot more of that to the table, and that's what creates goodwill, change, freedom, calm, presence, connection, all the things that we are looking for. Okay? You cannot see it when you are worrying about someone else's lane. You know, have you ever noticed that and this is particularly at night when you're driving, right? When we're driving at night, because oncoming headlights are very mesmerizing, aren't they? You learn, don't you? One of the first things you learn about night driving is you just look at the lane. Now, this is going to be different for different parts of the world, right? Depending on which side of the road you drive on. But you're either going to focus on the left-hand lane if you are drive on the side of the road we do, probably the right-hand lane if you're on the other side, or on that middle lane, right? You don't look at the headlights because if you do, you will veer into the car. And so you learn to focus on your own lane. And that's how you stay safe. That's how driving becomes easier and you don't get tempted into something else. Well, this is very much the same thing. Stay in your own lane. You got to know when you're in your own lane and you got to know when you're polluting somebody else's. Very, very, very important. People go around innocently polluting other people's lanes, hanging out in someone else's lanes, causing car crashes everywhere, and then wondering why there is no goodwill and there is so much tension. So I'm going to check in and see if this is making sense to you, and I'm going to check the questions that my assistant has got ready for me. So let me know if this is making sense. Thanks, Rose. I just came up with that one. Don't you just love that? These things just pop into your head. I love that. That's the way creativity flows through us all, right? Things just show up in a given moment of now. I love the way things just show up in any given moment of now. I'm very trusting in that something will show up to meet my moment of now. So let me know if that makes sense, what I was just saying. And John Freeman smashed it. Okay, thanks, John. I really appreciate it. You know what, I don't know if you've just done that as a play on words, considering we're talking about cars and lanes and headlights, but smashed it works really well with that analogy. So good one. If anybody else wants to comment on what I've said, please let me know. And if you have a question about what I've just said, feel free to post it below. Okay. Now, okay, coming to a question I've had come through from today. Hi, Fiona. I enjoy your Friday lives each week, and I've learned so much from you about the human experience. Okay, cool. My question to you, I would love answered on your Friday live, is that my son very recently started secondary school. Sadly, he's had to deal with a few experiences of other children making racist comments and calling him fat. He used to suffer from anxiety, but this was improving. Starting secondary school was very daunting for him, as is the case for most children, and he was worried about bullying. Obviously, I reassured him and I'll comfort him when he comes home upset after the horrible comments. I never let him see it, but I'm heartbroken having to see him deal with all this. Talking to the school is out of the question, as he's asked me to promise not to talk to them for fear of repercussion. I also want him to continue talking to me, so I don't want to betray his trust. How can I best help him deal with what he is going through? Thanks so much. I'll listen on your Friday Live with the hope that you reply to my question. Oh, yes. I'm so sorry that you're going through that and that your son is going through that. That's tough as a parent. It really is. I got very badly bullied at school, very badly myself, and I made my parents swear not to speak to the school either because I was worried about the exact same thing. So nothing has really changed. This is how things. This is how things ripple out in life, and I'm very, very sorry to hear that for your son. Um, I guess anything like this can only be handled by moments of now, moments of now, moments of now. Okay, that's all it can be. And all I can say to you is, it's you being the most present to your son is the best thing that you can do. All right, you being the most present. And so that means in those moments when he wants to talk, and I'm sure you're probably already doing this, honey, everything gets put down. You stop. He's got your full undivided attention, right? And you're completely present with him. And so he knows there is someone that has his back out there that listens and that he can speak to and who absolutely has his back. That's all you can do because this is an ever moving, changing thing, right? I know when I was being badly bullied, the way out for me was we actually got burnt out at the Ash Wednesday bushfires, which is, for those of you who don't know, a shocking massive fire here we had in Australia last century. Sounds like a long time ago, and it was a massive impact on many, many people. Many people lost their homes. Many people died. It was one of the worst bushfires Australia had ever seen at that time. And so because of that, I ended up moving schools, which ended up being the best thing for me, right? The best thing. Now, I'm not saying that's what your son needs to do, but this is something that you want to stay open-minded with, keep listening to, and keep just I know with a lot of conversations, especially with my teenagers, I will say to them, a lot of the time we often want to go into fix it mode as parents, right? We want to try and tell them what to do and have you tried this, have you tried that? And really what people need, because in the moment that your son is feeling bullied, he's feeling very separate and alone, right? And the thing that feeds our soul is a feeling of connection, right? That's what feeds our soul when we feel connected, and that's what he needs. He needs a sense of connection. And so when we're in fix-it mode, we're not necessarily creating that. So I think it's often important to ask permission, and this is a good thing for everybody. If you're talking to someone who's struggling, ask permission. And here's what I mean. Would you like my opinion, or do you just want me to listen? Do you want me to make a suggestion, or would you like me to listen? Now, you'd be surprised when you ask that question. 9 times out of 10, people will say, I just want you to listen. You'd be surprised. Because through listening, you are holding space for someone and you're giving them the opportunity to work things through in their own mind, which is the most empowering place to help another human being, right? You want them to feel empowered. And I'm very passionate about this. I'm very, 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 very passionate about this, that this is about everything in my programs is about, and everything I do with my clients is about empowering that person so that they know how to fish versus me feeding them fish. Feeding someone fish does not empower someone and does not help them the next time life hits, because life is a contact sport and stuff happens, like, what's happened with my dog out of the blue yesterday, right? You can be going along, everything's normal, and then boom, something like that happens, right? So it's that capacity to know how to fish. That's what gives people a sense of resilience when life does what life does, okay? And so this is about creating connection, being present, building resilience in your son, but not necessarily through making lots of suggestions, but by holding space and asking him what he thinks, being curious, right? So what do you make of that? How are you feeling? Do you want to talk about it? And sometimes, there's nothing to say other than just give someone a really big hug and make pancakes, for example, or you know what I mean? Just do something fun together to take their mind off it. But it's being present to whatever that moment of now brings. Okay? Because it's easy when we are seeing someone suffering, whether it be our child, our partner, whatever, to race ahead to solutions. Why don't we try this? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And we can bring this really frantic energy to something, okay? Which creates a lot of franticness in the other person. The best thing a person can do is know that there's someone who has their back, who's deeply listening, who's holding space, who understands where they are and can feel their pain. But there's a difference between bringing empathy and sympathy. So you want to bring empathy for your son, which is where you feel his pain, you are there, but you are not going through the experience with him. Right? That's sympathy. That's a different thing, right? Because you want to be able to look at your son and see that he has everything he needs to handle this, and that he has the answers, and you want to know that in yourself and bring that knowing to your interactions, because it will change the flavor that you bring. All right, remember, concern creates concern, and that there is an incredible amount of wisdom in us all, our children, ourselves. It's something we're born with, and the more you are able to hold space and stay calm and neutral with someone, the quicker they get access to their own insights, their own wisdom, and whatever it is they need in order to deal with whatever it is they are dealing with. Because the whole thing is that you want to empower your son, okay? Because he feels very disempowered at school. And that's the way you empower someone, is you hold space and you give them an opportunity for them to come to their own conclusions, even if it looks really obvious to you. Okay? I really hope that helps. And I sincerely wish you both all the best as you navigate that. Trisha, very well said and totally agree. Thank you. Susan, hi. Hi, Susan. Nice to see you. Nice to hear you. Thank you very much. Natasha, oh, wow, exactly what I needed to hear today for my son. Thanks, Fiona. Timing is perfect all the time on your calls. You're amazing. Oh, thanks, Natasha. Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. So now we're coming towards the end of my live, and a lot of people ask me about my online program Relatable, where I teach this understanding step by step. All of the things that I'm referring to here, I go into I teach over 8 weeks. You've got 12 months access to Relatable. If it's something you would like to know more about, I'll put the link in there. People love the program. People often tell me it's the best thing they've ever done, and it is incredibly empowering in your life and your relationships. If you want to slow your mind down, stop all the overthinking, stop taking life so personally, stop all the ruminating. If you want to connect and be present and actually have a strong sense of self, be comfortable in your skin and feel completely empowered, that's what Relatable is all about. And the beautiful thing about it, and this is why we call it Relatable, is people learn a completely different way of relating. That's not complicated. It's simple and easy, and yes, effortless in many, many, many ways. So if you want to know more about it, I will put the link in the comments below. I have a 15-day money-back guarantee. So if you wanted to try Relatable and it's not for you, you've got 15 days to give it a go, and you'll get a very good sense of the program. We have amazing group calls that I run twice a week with students all over the world. And yeah, it's just a beautiful, beautiful understanding to live your life from. And it just gets deeper and better over time. Thank you, Rose. Yes, Rose is in the program, so is Peter. Thank you, Rose. Yes, I know it's been so helpful for you, and obviously the things that you share, Peter, have been incredible. And if you've got a question about it, there's people here that will answer that for you. And, I'd love to see you join us, because, more and more people are seeing the power of living from this space, what it means to their lives, what it means to their families, what it means to the quality of the feeling they get to live in, how present and grounded they are, and just how real we can be with each other. So I'll leave the comments in there. If you have a question, please, 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 you can send an email to me to hello@fionalukis.com.au, and I will answer it on next Friday's live. Now, the other thing I want to say is tomorrow is my 18th wedding anniversary, and I can honestly say to you, I came across this understanding that I teach in Relatable, and that I'm talking about in my lives and in my ebook, and it's the basis of everything. I came across this understanding when my husband and I were about 7 years into our marriage. And at that stage, truly, 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 I thought that the only option for us was to get a divorce. I was very unhappy. I thought my husband and I were completely incompatible. I thought I had married the wrong man. This is true, 100% true. And I could not see a future. And it was not long after that, I actually had the conversation with my husband. I'm done. I don't love you. I want a divorce. This conversation actually happened. And I was absolutely convinced that I was doing the right thing, and that I was not going to change my mind, that this was the way it is. And I was just so grateful and lucky to come across something that rocked everything I thought I knew. And I had studied everything. I'd studied NLP, I'd studied tapping, I'd studied, you name it, I'd studied it. And I had never been taught this. I couldn't believe it. And it was through the lens of this understanding that my relationship with my husband changed. My relationship with me changed. I found me. I came home, as I would call it. And I discovered something I think I'd been looking for my whole life. And so, I get also emotional because I look at the fact that my husband and I are about to celebrate 18 years. We could not be closer. And we have such a great time together. And yet I was that close to not being able to have the experience that I now have, for us to be celebrating our 18th wedding anniversary. And so, I come round to this time each year and I pinch myself because I cannot believe that this is where things are at. And so whilst I have this incredible sadness, and I do, if some of you have tuned in later and my eyes look red, I was just sharing I lost my best friend, my dog, yesterday quite suddenly due to a seizure. And it was horrific. And I'm still just processing that. So there's a lot of grieving, a lot of tears, and that's okay. These things come and go in waves. But on the other side of it, I have my 18th wedding anniversary that I'm incredibly grateful for, and I'm incredible for the goodwill and the good feeling between my husband and I, the fact that we love each other through our frailties, that there is this wonderful, deep, rich, emotional intimacy between us. And do we argue? Yes, we do. Do we have conflict? Yes, we do. But we move through it with ease and grace and humility. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful for that. And it's the understanding that I teach that has brought that into my life, and I would love you to have access to it as well. So I'll put the link to Relatable in the comments. That is where I teach this. And that's where you can see this more deeply for you. It doesn't matter about your past. It doesn't matter about your age or your gender. This has nothing to do with whether you're male or female, old or young, rich or poor, whatever culture or religion you are. This has nothing to do with it. This is about understanding the way human beings work. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for listening. It's always a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to spend this time with you. I will see you next Friday. Take care, everyone. Ciao.